You know that feeling when a song comes on the radio and you immediately reach for the dial? Well, the 1970s gave us some absolutely unforgettable music, but not all of it was unforgettable for the right reasons. So today, we're taking a trip back to explore 15 most hated songs of the 1970s. Number 15, Disco Duck by Rick Dees.
I'm the disco duck.
Let's start with what might be the most ridiculous novelty song ever to climb the charts. In 1976, radio DJ Rick Dees created this Donald Duck voice disco number that somehow managed to reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song featured Dees doing his best Donald Duck impression over a disco beat, quacking his way through what passed for lyrics about a duck who loved to dance. Radio programmers initially loved it because it was different, but the novelty wore thin incredibly fast. The constant quacking became fingernails on chalkboard irritating, especially when stations played it multiple times per day. What made it particularly grating was how it seemed to mock the disco movement while simultaneously trying to profit from it. Many serious music fans saw it as everything wrong with the commercialization of popular music, reducing art to the lowest common denominator. The song's success also opened the floodgates for other animal-themed novelty records, none of which matched its commercial success, but all of which added to the general fatigue listeners felt toward gimmicky music. Number 14, MacArthur Park by Richard Harris.
Waiting for us, girl, it ran one step ahead.
Originally released in 1968, but finding new life and new hatred in the 1970s, this 7-minute odyssey of confusion became a target for music critics and casual listeners alike. Written by Jimmy Webb, the song tells the bizarre story of someone watching their cake melt in the rain in MacArthur Park, using this as a metaphor for lost love.
Someone left the cake out in the rain.
The problem wasn't just the surreal imagery, though lines about melting cake in the rain certainly raised eyebrows. It was Richard Harris's overwrought theatrical delivery combined with the song's excessive length that made radio listeners groan. At nearly 7.5 minutes, it was an eternity in radio time, and Harris's dramatic, almost operatic style felt pretentious to many ears.
Foaming like a wave on the ground around you.
The song became a particular target of mockery, because it seemed to take itself so seriously while being about something so mundane as a cake getting rained on. When Donna Summer covered it in 1978, it proved the song could work with different arrangements. But Harris's original version remained a lightning rod for criticism about self-indulgent songwriting.
Words like tender babies in your hands, and the old man.
Number 13, You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone. This might be the most successful song on our list, spending 10 consecutive weeks at number 1 in 1977. But success doesn't equal love, and You Light Up My Life became a poster child for everything people found cloying about late 70s pop music. Written by Joe Brooks for a forgettable movie of the same name, the song was performed by Pat Boone's daughter Debbie with such earnest sincerity that it felt suffocating to many listeners. The production was slick and professional, but that only made it feel more manufactured and calculated. What really got under people's skin was the song's omnipresence. 10 weeks at number 1 meant you couldn't escape it. It was on every radio station, in every store, at every wedding. The saccharine sweetness that initially charmed audiences became overwhelming through constant repetition. Even people who initially enjoyed the song found themselves reaching for the radio dial by week 6 or 7 of its chart domination.
Could it be finally?
The song's success also represented a shift towards safer, more sanitized pop music that many felt lacked the edge and authenticity of earlier 70s music. Number 12, Playground in My Mind by Clint Holmes.
My name
name is Michael. I got a nickel. I got a nickel.
This 1973 hit perfectly captured everything that could go wrong with a novelty song. Holmes, a lounge singer, created this bizarre track that featured him singing in a childlike voice about childhood memories and playground games.
The children laugh and
The concept might have worked as a brief interlude, but stretched to over 3 minutes, it became genuinely creepy rather than nostalgic. Holmes's artificially high-pitched vocal delivery was meant to evoke innocence, but instead came across as unsettling. The production, with its carnival-like arrangement, only added to the song's disturbing quality.
this world gets me down, and there's no love to be.
Radio listeners found the song particularly annoying because it was impossible to ignore. The childlike vocals cut through any background noise, demanding attention whether you wanted to give it or not. The song's success spawned imitators, creating a brief but thankfully short-lived trend of grown men singing in baby voices.
Close your eyes and follow me where the cheer.
Many parents found the song inappropriate, though they couldn't quite articulate why, while music critics dismissed it as cynical manipulation of childhood nostalgia for commercial gain. Number 11. The Night Chicago Died by Paper Lace British Band.
Daddy was a cop on the east side of Chicago.
Paper Lace scored their biggest American hit with this 1974 dramatization of a fictional gang war in Chicago during the 1930s. The problem was that the song's view of American history was so cartoonish and inaccurate that it felt like a bad Hollywood movie condensed into 3 minutes.
When the town of Chicago died.
The song featured dramatic spoken word sections mixed with melodic verses, telling the story of a gun battle between Al Capone's gang and Chicago police. But Paper Lace's British accents made the whole thing feel like tourists playing dress-up, and their understanding of Chicago geography was clearly limited.
Try to make that town his own, and he called his gang to war.
American listeners were particularly put off by the song's simplistic portrayal of their country's history. The dramatic production, with its over-the-top orchestration and sound effects, felt more like a theme park attraction than a serious piece of music. Radio DJs often used it as an example of how foreign artists could completely misunderstand American culture while still having hit records.
I heard my mama cry. I heard her pray.
The song's success also annoyed critics who felt it took a chart position away from more deserving American artists who actually understood the stories they were trying to tell.
I heard her pray the night Chicago died.
Number 10. Billy, Don't Be a Hero by Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods.
Marching band came down along Main Street.
This 1974 anti-war ballad had good intentions, but terrible execution. The song tells the story of a young soldier who goes off to war despite his girlfriend's pleas, only to die in battle. It was clearly meant to be a somber reflection on the cost of war, but the bouncy, upbeat production completely undermined the serious subject matter.
Billy, don't be a hero, don't be a fool with your life.
The disconnect between the tragic story and the cheerful musical arrangement made the song feel almost insulting to anyone who had actually lost someone in war. Bo Donaldson's vocal delivery was so peppy and enthusiastic that it sounded like he was singing about a fun day at the beach rather than death on a battlefield. What made it even more frustrating was that the song had been done better by British band Paper Lace earlier the same year. The American version felt like a cash grab that completely missed the point of the original, stripping away any emotional weight in favor of radio-friendly poppiness.
Billy, don't be a hero, don't be a fool.
Veterans organizations and military families found the song particularly offensive, feeling that it trivialized the real experiences of soldiers and their families.
He said, Billy, keep your head low.
Number 9. Afternoon Delight by Starland Vocal Band. This 1976 hit won a Grammy Award, which only made its inclusion on Worst Songs lists more controversial. Written by Bill Danoff, The song used food metaphors to describe afternoon romance, but the euphemisms were so obvious that they felt juvenile rather than clever.
Afternoon delight.
The Starland vocal band's clean-cut image and wholesome harmonies created a bizarre contrast with the song's sexual content. It was like having the Brady Bunch sing about adult topics, and the disconnect made many listeners uncomfortable. The group's earnest delivery suggested they didn't fully understand their own innuendo, which made the whole thing even more awkward.
When everything's a little clearer in the light of day.
Radio programmers initially played it heavily because the sexual content was disguised enough to avoid censorship, but the song's true meaning became impossible to ignore. Parents were mortified when they realized what their children were singing along to, while teenagers found the whole thing embarrassingly uncool.
Started out this morning feeling so polite, I always thought of it.
The song's success also represented everything that critics felt was wrong with 70s pop music: manufactured wholesomeness, hiding calculated commercialism. Number 8. Shannon by Henry Gross.
No one can even begin.
This 1976 tearjerker about a dog who drowns while trying to save its owner divided listeners like few other songs. Henry Gross, formerly of Sha Na Na, wrote the song about Beach Boy Carl Wilson's real dog. But the result was so maudlin that many found it manipulative rather than moving. The song's production was professionally slick, but that only made it feel more calculated. Gross's vocal delivery was so deliberately emotional that it came across as fake, like an actor overplaying a death scene. The orchestral arrangements were similarly overwrought, laying on the pathos so thick that it felt suffocating.
But maybe it's better that way.
Animal lovers were divided. Some found the song genuinely touching, while others felt it exploited their emotions for commercial gain. The song's success led to numerous imitators, creating a brief trend of sad animal songs that radio listeners grew to dread. Critics particularly disliked how the song used genuine grief as entertainment, turning personal loss into a 3-minute commercial product. Number 7. Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks.
Goodbye to you, my trusted friend.
Terry Jacks's 1974 interpretation of Jacques Brel's Belgian song Le Moribond became one of the decade's most polarizing hits. The song, sung from the perspective of a dying man saying goodbye to his loved ones, should have been deeply moving. Instead, Jacks's production turned it into something that felt more like a greeting card than genuine emotion.
Goodbye, my friend, it's hard to die.
The problem wasn't the concept, but the execution. Jacks's vocal delivery was so artificially cheerful that it completely undermined the song's tragic content. The production, with its bouncy rhythm and major key melody, made death sound like a fun adventure rather than a profound loss.
When all the birds are singing in the sky.
Listeners found the disconnect between form and content deeply unsettling. The song was trying to deal with mortality and loss, but it sounded like a children's sing-along. This tonal confusion made it impossible for many people to take the song seriously, even though it dealt with serious themes.
Bye, Papa, please pray for me.
The song's massive commercial success only made its critics more vocal, as they felt it represented everything shallow about commercial pop music's approach to serious subjects.
I was the black sheep of the family.
Number 6. Muskrat Love by Captain and Tennille.
Muskrat, muskrat, candlelights.
Originally written and recorded by Willis Allen Ramsey, this song about the romance between two muskrats became a 1976 hit for the husband and wife duo Captain and Tennille. Their version turned an already questionable concept into something that many listeners found genuinely creepy.
Muskrat love.
Tony Tennille's vocal performance included actual muskrat-like sound effects, complete with squeaking and chittering noises that were supposed to be cute, but instead came across as disturbing. The song's anthropomorphic approach to animal romance made many adults uncomfortable, while the sound effects made it impossible to ignore. The production's lush orchestration tried to make the whole thing sound romantic and sophisticated, but the fundamental absurdity of singing about muskrat courtship couldn't be overcome by professional arrangements. The song felt like it was written for children, but performed for adults, creating a confusion that satisfied no one. Radio DJs often used the song as a bathroom break, knowing that listeners would either love it or immediately change the station. Number 5. Timothy by The Boys. This 1971 song, written by Rupert Holmes, told the story of 3 miners trapped in a cave-in, with the strong implication that 2 of them resort to cannibalism to survive. While technically a fascinating piece of storytelling, radio listeners found it deeply disturbing, especially since the subject matter was hidden behind a catchy pop melody. The Boys performed the song with such cheerful energy that the horrific content became even more unsettling. The disconnect between the upbeat musical arrangement and the tale of survival cannibalism created a cognitive dissonance that many found impossible to reconcile. Parents were horrified when they realized what their children were singing along to, while radio programmers faced complaints from listeners who felt deceived by the song's deceptively innocent sound. The song's chart success proved that controversial content could sell records, but it also demonstrated that commercial success didn't necessarily mean public acceptance. Many radio stations eventually banned the song once its true meaning became widely understood, making it one of the first casualties of content-based censorship in the decade. Number 4. Having My Baby by Paul Anka.
What a lovely way of saying how much you love.
Paul Anka's 1974 Ode to Pregnancy and Fatherhood was meant to celebrate the joy of expecting a child, but its execution made many listeners cringe. The song's possessive language and dated attitudes toward women made it feel uncomfortable even by 1970s standards.
Let you have my baby. You're the
Anka's overwrought vocal delivery turned what should have been an intimate moment into a public spectacle. The orchestral production was so bombastic that it felt like he was announcing a major historical event rather than sharing personal joy. The song's sentiment was clearly heartfelt, but the execution was so over the top that it felt more like parody than genuine emotion.
You're the woman I love, and I love what it's doing to you.
Women's rights activists particularly disliked the song's possessive language and its reduction of pregnancy to male achievement. The song seemed to celebrate the man's role while treating the woman as little more than a vessel, reflecting attitudes that were already becoming outdated.
Oh, the seed inside you, baby, do you feel it grow?
Radio listeners found the song's emotional manipulation irritating, especially when it was played during morning commutes or other inappropriate contexts.
Didn't have to keep it, wouldn't put you through.
Number 3. Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree by Tony Orlando and Dawn.
My sweet gypsy rose, here's a picture when she...
This 1973 hit about a returning prisoner asking his wife to signal her forgiveness became one of the most overplayed songs of the decade. While the sentiment was touching and the performance was professional, the song's constant radio presence made it unbearable for many listeners. The song's success led to its adoption as a symbol for various causes, from prisoner rehabilitation to military homecomings. But this cultural appropriation made it feel more like a political statement than entertainment. Every radio station seemed to play it multiple times per day, making it impossible to escape. Tony Orlando's earnest vocal delivery, while perfectly appropriate for the material, began to feel cloying through repetition. The song's simple message and catchy melody made it memorable, but those same qualities made it stick in listeners' heads long after they wanted to forget it.
I'll stay on the bus, forget about us, put the blame on me.
The song's association with real-world events also made it feel manipulative to some listeners, who felt their emotions were being exploited for commercial purposes.
And I can't believe I see.
Number 2. Feelings by Morris Albert.
Feelings of love.
This 1975 ballad became the soundtrack to countless awkward moments, from wedding receptions to elevator rides. Morris Albert's Brazilian accent made some of the English pronunciation unclear, while his overwrought emotional delivery made the song feel more like a cry for help than a romantic ballad. The song's simple structure and repetitive chorus made it easy to learn, but impossible to forget, creating a situation where people found themselves humming it against their will. The production's lush orchestration tried to create sophistication, but the fundamental simplicity of the lyrics made the whole thing feel overproduced. Lounge singers and wedding bands adopted the song as a standard, ensuring that no social gathering was safe from its presence. The song became a shorthand for everything that was cheesy about 70s romantic music, representing the triumph of sentiment over substance. Critics particularly disliked how the song's success encouraged other international artists to record similar overwrought ballads, creating a wave of emotional manipulation disguised as entertainment.
Feelings like I've never lost you.
Number 1. Honey by Bobby Goldsboro.
I laughed at her and she got mad the first day that she planted.
Though technically from 1968, this song continued to haunt radio playlists throughout the early 70s, making it a prime target for listener hatred. The song tells the story of a man reminiscing about his deceased wife, whom he condescendingly called Honey. But the execution was so maudlin and patronizing that it became a lightning rod for criticism.
And honey, I miss you.
Goldsboro's vocal performance was so artificially emotional that it felt more like a soap opera audition than genuine grief. The song's portrayal of the wife as childlike and helpless, referred to throughout as Honey rather than by name, reflected attitudes toward women that even 1970s listeners found outdated and offensive.
Now my life's an empty stage where honey lived and honey played.
The production's syrupy orchestration laid the pathos on so thick that it felt suffocating. Every musical element was designed to manipulate emotions, from the weeping strings to Goldsboro's calculated vocal breaks. The song felt less like art and more like emotional manipulation for commercial purposes.
She wrecked the car and she was sad and so afraid that I'd be mad.
What made Honey particularly annoying was its length and its tendency to appear on radio during inappropriate moments. Hearing a song about death and loss during morning drive time, or while shopping for groceries, created a tonal disconnect that many found jarring and unpleasant.
Though I pretended hard to be, guess you could say she saw through.
The 1970s gave us incredible music, from the artistic peaks of David Bowie and Led Zeppelin to the dance floor magic of disco. But every decade has its musical casualties, and these 15 songs represent the flip side of that creative explosion. They remind us that not every song that climbs the charts earns a place in our hearts, and sometimes the most successful songs are the ones we remember for all the wrong reasons. Looking back, these songs serve as time capsules of their era's commercial pressures and cultural attitudes. While they may have annoyed listeners at the time, they're part of the rich tapestry of 70s music history. Whether you love them or hate them, they were undeniably part of the soundtrack of the decade. What songs from the 70s made you reach for the radio dial? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more musical nostalgia. Thanks for taking this trip down memory lane with us, even if it was to visit some of the more frustrating stops along the way.